Good evening, everyone. We're going to open the zoning board of appeals meeting. My name is Howie Fraser. This is Elaine Baker and Eric's 5 members. Sue Noyes is our administrator, and Lisa Mead is town council. What do we start with?
Couple of votes. First,
Doesn't look like it's here.
let's continue.
Let's continue.
I don't know if you just want to
What is it again?
save it, to recall it because he may have accidentally gone to 12 Kent Way, so
Okay.
that's what I'm
Okay.
looking at.
That's fine. Okay, go to the second.
Ms. Thomas?
Don't see him either.
I did not hear from him at all, I didn't hear him, so.
Okay, so do we want to talk about what we want to do real quick, keep the application?
I think the last time we heard, there was a lot of other information that was discovered from the building inspector and kind of understanding of how the whole situation would be. The applicant hasn't presented any of that information.
So, I just continue on with no new information.
No, and I would also think that we might say that the applicant has to state the matter of fact of what is fact in the application. So, we only got what we've got in terms of the two apartments or two units in the same lot, et cetera.
So, you want to continue until one more meeting?
Yeah. One more.
Yep.
So you send a notice or an email or something? Or you can do that?
I'll let him know. Yeah, that's one.
Tell them, after we make a motion to pass it, that next month, unless he comes up with new information, we're done. Okay, I have a motion to continue the custody here.
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You need a date and time certain.
Let's see.
That will be Thursday, February 21st. That's on
Motion passes. All right, Dorothy Straight.
She did request a continuance.
Oh.
I do have the signed form here. Just need you to confirm that. And that again will be till Thursday, February 21st.
Okay, the cottages.
Right.
Somebody's here.
Yeah.
Come on.
So we presented really the meat and potatoes of the project last month, but we had 4 major points to come back and elaborate on for you guys. One of them being the sewer easement which runs through the property. I did have Jamie took a look from the water and sewer department. He came out, walked the site with me, and I have in writing that as far as the city's concerned, the project will not affect the easement nor access to city's equipment. It's really just a sewer main that goes under a gravel drive. Next was the issue of the 2 lots being under the same or separate ownership. And it was our decision to keep them separate. It's our understanding that the parking is building more of a sand thing. If we do decide to do something else with the property, we would lose the use to operate, or the ability to operate, and we're okay with that. We don't plan on doing anything like that. It's not the 8-hour lot. So it shouldn't, it's really detailed more instead of tomorrow. Because if we combine them, we lose the non-conforming use of the property, which we think is more valuable. parking additions.
Try to figure that. My name is Shannon Apple from TMS Architects. I met you guys a couple months ago. The first meeting, as Jeff mentioned or outlined, one of the things that we talked about was a quick overview that represents the project in terms of its proposed footprint, and then actually below for reference you can see the two existing buildings at the corner property in terms of the garage and then the apartment. This barn here, the second parcel, and then just a kind of a relationship of the other properties that are adjacent to the subject parcel that we're going to be asking for work on. So this gives you just kind of an outline of the amount of square footage or the relationship of the new proposed building to the lot itself. One of the other questions that had come up was the second parcel here. You can start to see, you can see the gravel road, which represents kind of the roadways in and out. The question had come up, and Jeff had spoken to it first about the easement. What we do have is, here's kind of the easement lines as they run through the property. We will not interrupt those easement lines, they will basically be continued. They are gravel right now in the proposed site plan layout in terms of what we're doing for materials and parking. They'll be able to get to that easement if it's needed. And the last thing I just want to show you, and then I can answer any questions, is there was discussion about some additional parking or playing with parking. And so what we did is we added an additional 10 parking spots here. We lost 2, but this helps to show a little bit of the circulation on the property. In terms of some of the discussions that we talked about last time. On the upper left here is just representative of a little bit of landscaping in terms of how we're approaching the project. And this relates to that first slide or first image that I showed you where you kind of see the footprint of this building on the lot and then in the general context of the immediate neighborhood. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, I think we've got several issues to discuss. One is the parking, the issue of the 2 lots, and the 2 units on the second lot. It's clear what you're trying to do. It's clear with the restaurant in terms of its position and its size of the lot, but there's some, I think, some non-starters in terms of parking. And one of them is just the zoning regulation that the parking for a lot, for the use, needs to be provided on a lot, provided on its own lot. It needs to be provided, it could be provided on an adjacent or a secondary or a lot within 250 feet. That lot needs to be owned by the owner of the property for the parking, and that's just a clear bylaw. Second, if you have parking on the second lot, and understanding that you're combining the 2 lots, but you're asking a lot of the second lot in terms of easements or servitudes that put a burden on that lot, that you might as well just demolish the existing dwelling unit because you couldn't do anything on that lot in the future anyway. So what are you really trying to preserve on that lot? You have a shack that's in deteriorating condition, house or dwelling that's in deteriorating condition. At some point, it's going to need some renovation. And with that parking, if you burden the lot with an easement, if that's even allowable, you wouldn't be able to do anything with that because you wouldn't have the setbacks in the area in which to do anything. So that dwelling is going to decay into non-existence anyway. So there's no right to save there. Knowing that there's 2 dwelling units on the same lot on 8R is an issue unto itself. And in fact, the legal status of having those 2 dwelling units on one lot needs to be clarified in terms of preserving any status or finding on that lot. But let's just start with lot 2. If you're going to put a use on a lot, the use, everyone has it, everyone buys a piece of property, you can only do so much in that piece of property by the zoning bylaws. So you could shrink the restaurant down to the size to fit the parking on the restaurant. You could buy more property and have more property and build a bigger restaurant and provide the parking on that one lot. And then the fact that you're putting parking on another lot and assuming an easement is granted, the use of parking isn't allowed. It's not permitted in the residential agricultural district. You don't have the right to give the parking on that lot. Interpreting the bylaw. So it starts with the parking. It starts with the premise of what you're really trying to preserve. I mean, you're trying to have two cakes and eat both of them. And, you know, if you got down, after we cleared all that issue, or you had, let's just say those were both combined, and the fact that they may have had one owner, and the fact that they were bought by two separate owners, whatever rights they had as a conjoined lot, and whatever status the non-conformity had, because the lots were combined in terms of setbacks, once they were separated, bought by separate people, then some of those existing non-conforming conditions are now different. That's how I understand
Yeah, they have structures on them, so they retain their pre-existing non-conforming status, as far as the structures are concerned. But if they're under the same ownership and they remove those structures, then they merge, for sure. But you are correct, the zoning bylaw, it's not an option. The zoning bylaw says shall be under the same ownership. So the fact that they want to preserve that use in the rear, they're gonna have to make a choice, because the zoning bylaw is clear.
Can I just ask a couple of quick questions? And I know the first part of your question regarding the parking. Previously, or in our last presentation, we had 55 parking spots required for the restaurant. We had 57 that were on the lot without these parts in the yellow. And then, so I guess what your first comment is that these, we'll call them 18 or so spaces, if the lots are separated or maintained to be separated, then there's that issue per the zone.
Yes.
So the way to correct that, so to speak, would be to merge the two lots, just as hypothetical discussion. So then the question is from kind of the ownership perspective, if that makes sense to do that.
Once you merge the two lots, now we have a proposed change of use from auto repair to restaurant.
Right.
And then we have this garage building that has an apartment in it. And then we have this other dwelling that's half on the property, half off.
This guy right there.
That guy right there. So, you know, having the restaurant and having the appropriate parking then comes down and having more site to work with. I mean, you still have to go through site plan review. And I think when you go through site plan review, the one comment they're gonna have is parking that's adjacent to the right-of-way is you're gonna lose 4 to 8 spaces by having a turn. And you're right, the busiest intersection of Plum Island. And so those spaces right there, I think site plan is going to say that they'd like a car to be able to be lined up or a car to be able to pull off the road before they have to negotiate some kind of parking. But that's site plan review, we still have to go through that, but that is a condition that can be gotten to later. So I think in the order, if we can figure out what's the, in terms of this plan, what is the first row block, what is the second, what is the third, because there are several items that need to be cleared. It's not just to do this and everything is the next step. There are several steps to take. So I may not have presented that in the most organized way, but I think, you know, if you were to have a change of use and size the restaurant, put all the parking on lot 2, then the only issue would be the change of use from the auto repair to the restaurant. The fact that you don't have the parking creates a bigger issue to start with. And the fact that you want to put the parking on the lot 8R is an issue, and it's an issue that brings lot 8R onto itself. And if you're trying to preserve existing grandfathered non-conforming lots in terms of dwelling structures, you know, the fact that lot 8R came before us and you wanted to repair that back dwelling, you would have a series of issues of having 2 dwelling units, having a garage type structure with a dwelling unit, and having a dwelling unit all in the same lot. that's non-conforming. And how do we improve that for the betterment of the neighborhood if we're allowed, under what we're allowed to do under the allowance?
Yep, that's perfectly clear.
And I don't know if you want to talk about, or give some sense of the change of use.
We are going to address that you haven't given us any documentation of the previous use, other than you told us that it was used. And we need something substantial to show what the use was when it started, or at least when it ended.
For the previous use?
Yeah, the previous uses.
Okay.
You know, we need documentation.
Sure.
Used to be a big ass hotel. I don't think it's as important when it started as it is. I mean, you have to show that it was permitted. And we also need to know how long it continued.
I have copies of this license, so I don't know.
So if I could, Mr. Chair, so you're basing, so the problem is the Plum Island doesn't allow commercial uses. So the use has to be a pre-existing non-conforming use. Your council provided us with a business license from 2017 to say that lot 8R had been a pre-existing non-conforming use. But there's never been commercial uses permitted on Plum Island. So you actually have to show evidence that 8R was a commercial use from the time zoning was enacted, continuing to be used and or not abandoned until the present day, in order to convert that use to commercial use.
It's my understanding there's a 2-year grace period from when the.
That's right, so it has to show, that's why I said it had to be continuing and not abandoned.
How is that typically?
The town just had this recently happen, and it's been, if you can do it through affidavits, you can do it through business license, you can do it through prior permits. There's a whole host of photographs, you know, any kind of document at the registry of deeds. There's a whole host of information that could be presented to the board, and it would be up to you to determine. In that instance, it was the building inspector, but it's up to you to determine whether or not you believe that the use was continuing and not abandoned for any time more than 2 years over that span of time, which would be essentially 1959 forward.
If the lots were joined and the garage, if the lots were joined, the status of one can't be conveyed onto the other by merger or
No,
acquisition?
so if, the issue here is that if you're gonna use the parking for the restaurant, then it becomes a commercial use. So you have to show that that commercial use was a pre-existing non-conforming use. So, you can't merge the lot, if it were only used for residential purposes, you couldn't merge it and use it because it would be illegal.
If the parking is in the case of a merged lot with a restaurant on it, parking is accessory use to the restaurant, commercial use. If it's not being paid for beach parking, it's really just an accessory to the restaurant, then it's part of the restaurant. The use is really the change of what the structure is on lot 2 to the restaurant, because parking is an accessory to it. If it was just a parking lot,
Yep,
we would have, we'd say, okay, prove it was a parking lot.
right.
But we're going from the case of what commercial use was there, to different use, which is a restaurant.
Right.
And then the parking is accessory to the restaurant. So it's not like they have to prove that there was a parking lot.
No, it's a commercial use, so certainly on lot 2, the use is the gas station,
Right.
hair shop has been continuing, and there's lots of evidence of that. And so your job is to determine whether the conversion to a restaurant is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood or not under the special permit criteria. Under Lot 8R, the facts before the board so far is that the barn served as a, I think, an auto repair training
And it was a
facility.
furniture.
Okay, that's not of the record yet, but so of the record is that it was a auto repair school, I believe. And so if that's a commercial use, and so it's the same standard. If in fact that's a commercial use, and you want to convert it to another commercial use, i.e. parking adjacent to the restaurant, is it substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood?
I was thinking one was subservient to the other, but
But if they brought both of them under the same ownership, the barn, automotive repair, or not the repair, but the school and the furniture and like that would go away anyhow because it's going to be merged.
No, because you can't take, if, let's say it's residential, just for the conversation, if that's residential, you can't convert that lot standing alone under separate ownership, which is a legal use, to a use that is not allowed. So it's critical that they show that it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, if in fact they want to use them together.
right, if they're combined, then Lot 8 has to prove it's commercial use.
Correct.
If commercial uses, then it's the discussion of environmental.
That's correct.
Okay, I have a question that I didn't think about last time. There's nothing really specific, and I don't even know if you addressed it, but the restaurant's gonna be on pilings. What is underneath the building? It looks like you have something going on.
It would be, Shannon probably speaks better to this, but it will be nothing that, at least from a flood perspective, nothing that could be damaged. It'll all be within the conservation.
So it'd be no use for the restaurant at all, other than maybe where the utilities come.
It would be maybe some storage, but above 2 feet, I think was the requirement.
We had talked about it at one point where, as we kind of activate a sidewalk here to kind of help create interest to this corner, we had the main entrance to the restaurant here on the east side, potential bus stop here, allocation on the west side, and in this area was potentially a waiting space. And so the idea is that people could be here and then walk up to the deck or walk off the deck. So it's kind of a flexible space on the outside for landscape.
And you need a little bit more space for accessible entrance or entrance for the house to need to
Right.
get into that building.
Okay. Do we have anything else? I think that's major hurdles over there.
I think those are the major hurdles, I think. Just looking for a second of the bylaw, which I heard, public parking. So if you had a lot that was within 200 feet of this lot, and it had a commercial use on it, then possibly some parking could go there. But if that lot that was, near enough didn't have a commercial use or residential use, I think Lisa spoke to that, then you just can't turn dwelling, residential lot into parking. So I think
You
really
mentioned the cottage across the street is within, I believe it's within.
We've already counted the parking for the use of the cottage. It's not like you have extra use.
We do, we're 15, at least 15 above code.
Okay. So if we could go back and,
Right, so you just have to detail the use that, what you're using for the cottage, what you're using for beach parking, and which we would be using the proposed restaurant.
And that is within the distance. I think that's 200 feet. You gotta look it up.
250 feet.
250 feet. Thank you.
Definitely within 300, we send ourselves in 35
Yeah, but that's not 250.
I think we talked about that at the last meeting.
Right.
A little bit about that, and I think there was the question of, well, we satisfy the parking requirements here, but then obviously at the end of our conversation last meeting, it was the single lot or the two independent lots, so obviously that brought up a couple of questions, so.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak in favor of the project, or have any questions, or opposition, whatever?
I have some questions.
Sure. You can give Sue your name and address.
Jennifer Blanchet, 4 Island Lane. So I missed apparently the first meeting where things were formally presented, so forgive me if you're having to repeat yourself. How many seats are in the proposal in its maximum, both interior and exterior?
We have 100 seats. So 182 total.
And then your whatever parking count analysis you've done also includes staff and all of that?
Yep. We allocated a certain amount for the staff.
Okay. And then has the traffic analysis been presented? Okay.
No, it hasn't, for zoning questions that we're dealing with, it would still have to go before the planning board. And the planning board would have other site criteria such as the traffic
I do
study.
understand for site plan review, but I was under the understanding that traffic is one of the considerations for finding the use not more detrimental.
Yeah, and we have some that if we took the next step and we were a little clearer about use, that would be one of the conditions or topics we would discuss. And we would probably have something like this, would have a condition that it must meet and be approved by planning. And we may have a couple stipulations that further detail what those conditions might be.
So it's something you were intending to look at more as you know more of what the project is.
Yes, or we would, if we were to make a decision, we might have conditions on our decision that Board of Health, that Planning Board, that et cetera, needed to have their approvals in place before our approval became finalized.
So similarly, noise and hours of operation and delivery and trash removal would be addressed in that manner? Or have you been presented with
No,
anything?
we didn't get that.
No,
Okay.
sometimes it's pretty simple that, okay, here's the zoning issue, you've resolved the bylaw for that. Now you can go on. Sometimes we ask someone to do Conservation Commission. At the same time, there are hearings because we need to hear the results of that.
Well, if you haven't been presented with anything, you have to take into consideration, so I can't.
Right, and there are, those issues, in terms of, it's clear in terms of the whole parking, that we do have issues that we can bring up and list specifically about parking spaces not backing into a private way, but we would kind of leave that up to planning board review first.
And then is McLeod Ave private, what I'm understanding?
That's owned by the town.
Okay.
Is this helpful to larger?
Okay,
context?
so that is a public way up there, okay.
Yeah, there was before the lot was sold, there was a presentation asking to sort of switch some property back and forth in order to make that a more conforming street.
So like you suggested, the planning board would look at parking and that street and all of that.
Yes.
Can I interject just one thing, because I meant to pick it up earlier? We have proposed that the circulation of traffic is in and out, so one way in and one way out. And so I just wanted you to clarify the backing up, just so I understood that.
Well, I'm just reading right out of the uses. Backing prohibited, no parking space shall be located to require backing to or from the street. So, and I think planning board, planning board would obviously look at that, look at the intersection and say, you know, you can't, car maneuvering with that kind of traffic on a beach day cannot be making and negotiating a turn and all of a sudden having somebody backing up,
Okay.
be left high and dry in the middle of the road. It's just a safety, so they'll go over safety concern. And
I just
they-
wanted to clarify that, see what you're doing.
and they may well ask, or we may well ask for a traffic study as part of the condition too.
And then is there a sidewalk or some sort of circulation shown around the corner, at this four-corner intersection?
Yep, I know it's a little hard to read at that scale, but the gray is representative of a sidewalk that we are proposing in some of our meetings, and as we talked about it, that made some sense, and then the green obviously is some vegetation that we're proposing. And that would meet the requirements of Conservation Commission. Basically, we're taking a huge amount of parking and reducing it and basically creating a pervious condition for pretty much the
Yeah,
whole
be it
site.
paved or not paved, but some sort of circulation is,
Yep.
that's pedestrian circulation.
Yep, and it actually makes its way around the building here, so.
And where there are no curves, and there's no clear easement or right of way, the intersection grows in size, which can create some issues.
It would be a good way to delineate it, basically.
Yes. That's what I was trying to say.
Do you have anything else at this point?
At this point, without more, I guess I was curious about the use shown underneath, assuming it would come into compliance with whether it's 2 feet above grade or 2 feet above base flood elevation, whichever is higher.
Dwelling units are allowed to have sort of a hung basement for utilities.
Right.
And some storage underneath, and obviously you have to be able to get into your dwelling.
And of course, ramps or stairs are.
Yes, and so some consideration or understanding of a different commercial use, different from a house where you would open the door and step into your house. Here you probably have to step into a vestibule one.
Right. But there'd be no restaurant use for the public. Good.
No, I'm addressing sort of, not only my own concerns, but a number of neighborhood concerns, if you will, and people were wondering what that was, and, you know, we see it flood
Yep.
frequently, and so they wanted to make sure that as it floods, the water can pass underneath and not be bringing chairs and all sorts of things into the roadways and such, so that's,
Yeah, and there's some thoughtful considerations of where the entrance goes on the back side of the lot as opposed to sticking out on the corner, which creates more
Sure.
confusion to get to.
This may help in terms of just a quick reference. Here's the intersection here. This is the main entrance into the restaurant. We have a handicap ramp just because we are 2 feet above the base flood. So by the time you get up here, you get into the vestibule, elevator up, stairs up, and there's egress stairs here, and then kitchen access. This aspect was for the furniture, things like that, storage if we needed to. I played with what would happen if you had people underneath it in terms of its height, because we have a high enough, basically underside of the framing to do that. But again, it was more of that. We articulated that outside space in the site plan.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
My name is Jeremiah Murphy. I reside at 814th Street. I also own property at 163 Old Floyd Road. So my concerns at this point would be heavily the traffic concerns, especially during the months of July and August, and how that would impact that area. That's, hopefully, you'll go with the traffic study on this. Also, it's an environmentally safe, sensitive area of the catch basin. You know, it is a flood zone, those concerns are addressed.
That really would be conservation and not
Okay.
zoning.
Well, you also have to make your recommendations to ask for those things, so. And the last is just the sidewalks in the area. If you're gonna have pedestrians walking between the two locations for parking, some of that sidewalk isn't really adequate for safely pedestrians, you know, increasing the amount of pedestrians.
I'm talking about sidewalks around the perimeter of the wall.
No sidewalks between the two locations for parking.
Remote parking.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Safely,
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Okay, I would just ask that you consider those concerns.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so would you come back at our next meeting and
I would, yes.
provide us the information we talked about tonight?
Absolutely.
What is the date of that meeting, just so we can.
Well, Sue's gonna tell you.
The meeting
Thank
will be
you.
Thursday, February 21st at 7:30, and that will be at Kent Way. Do one or both of you have signature authority on behalf of the applicant? To sign the continuance form or not?
Let's see, okay. Richard and Susan Cementelli, the applicant is requesting a finding for relief from section 97.4D of the Newbury zoning bylaw. As the proposed construction will increase the height of the structure on the lot and exceeds the lot coverage of the fair requirements of the Plum Island Overlay District, the IOD, on the lot located at 9 Second Street, Plum Island, Cessna map U04-053.
Take your time. How many bedrooms are in the existing house now? Three?
Conservation already? Yes. Wait, that's approved. Assessor's card? You have an existing conditions plan?
No. like to see what you have now compared with what you have building. We do have the footprint on the site plans, but not the interior parts of the FAR. You don't have to, I think if we just had a simple diagram of what the house is, that would define the existing.
Just trying to prove out, 50 bedrooms.
Right. You know, on the side. You know, just give us the layout and the size of the rooms. So we'll know what the total FAR is. And we have something to compare with the proposed.
I think you said you're exceeding, right?
I know there's a table, but we want to know where that table came from. Where those numbers came
Prove
from.
it out.
So now in this, on the proposed project, you have a covered deck. Two decks. And so in terms of measuring the first floor and then adding the interior, so in terms of lot coverage, come up with, very close to the 968 number, about 950 measurements very quickly.
The covered deck, we're trying to affect the FAR.
Yes, so figure that out. That's right, I think you can get a bit of difference between 1,256 versus something closer to 1,560.
So whatever, you understand what Eric's talking about? So the covered deck is considered FAR, which is going to increase your FAR.
Yeah, if I take your, if I take 1,256, I add the 264 for the deck, I get 1,520. So the covered deck is approximately 264 square feet, just 12 by 22 feet. It's 264 square feet. That seems to be how it adds up. And in this summary, in this sheet right here, you have covered decks or porches or sunrooms, so it'd be 264 right there.
That should be included in the FAR, which will increase the FAR of what you have, which will only go to 25%. So I don't know what that increase will make it. See what you have to, you would have 25%.
So in terms of measurement, how would the lot coverage seems to be there, the FAR obviously needs to include the deck. And then the third issue, I think you spoke about the wireless measuring, so I'm repeating myself, but the office is listed also.
Right, but they're allowed three.
You're allowed three.
If they have two, they're allowed three.
Yeah, it doesn't have
Well, they call it an office, but on the plan it says office bedroom. It says office bedroom. So Eric, I know you can't be exactly accurate, but by adding that FAR because of the covered porch, they go over 25%.
Question.
That's for them to really figure out, but I just want to get an idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's Well, the floor area ratio right now at 1,256 is 27.6%, so 1,559 gives you 34.2%.
That's way over the allowed. Take the roof off.
Well, if you didn't have, you wanted your upper deck because that's the theory, then you couldn't have a lower deck. And the lower deck would then take that out of the equation, you'd be at 27.6, which is still over. How's that comparable was?
On the application, it said that we're at 21.2. No, that's the proposed according to the application. The existing was, oh, 21.7, sorry.
So what covenant that is considered living?
Well, it's your, because people tend to enclose them after they move in. Not everybody, but it's been done.
So we don't.
So you want to focus on keeping that FAR at 25%? Tweak it however you have to. And,
And it appears that you appropriately counted the stairs, there's some way to sneak the stair underneath the deck above. In terms of lot coverage, it's small, but try to get it down.
Just have to go to inspector about it.
So you don't want to increase anything from the existing? And some sort of plan for the existing, show that whatever rooms you have. Yeah, yeah, with some measurements of what size. And you think you can get that done for 3 weeks? You can come back?
Yeah.
And if not,
I mean, let's get back.
you can contact Sue and you can continue that. I'll just ask if anybody'd like to comment on the project?
Yeah, I would.
Yes, sir.
My name is Terry Cardy, I'm the abutter at 752nd Street, right next, on this 152nd Street coming down. I own the property with my sister Sheila Goldman, she's not here tonight, but interested as well. My concerns are about Seven Tellers, really nice people, they're great summer neighbors, we come and go, I congratulate them, I'm happy that they're moving forward with the project they've been working towards for many years, My grandmother used to own the cottage, and it's really went down, it's time, it's hard to live there, so they're glad they're doing what they're doing. I just don't want it to be, the project when it's complete, to be unreasonably large, or too close to the property line, that may interfere with the situation that I have. My house is about 13 feet from the property line, and what I'm seeing here, this is gonna move from 26 feet to about 10 and a half feet from the property line, so it really is gonna be kind of close.
Right, but you do understand that 10 feet is the...
If it's legal, it's legal. That's the other point of my argument. I don't know what it all is. I just want to express my concerns. I'm not coming with a legal, or an objection or anything. Just want to make sure that.
What they've actually done, or the proposal, is corrected all the setbacks, because they're not conforming now.
And as the floors go up through there, so those layers coming out, like there's an overlap, that, so that the distance from the property line, if it's 10, so it needs to be 10 feet, does that include that if there's an overlap coming off the
The
property?
overlap has to be at the 10 feet.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, right, and I don't know, I haven't redone the plans that well, so I'm not sure, I just want to make sure that that's in compliance as well with with the lines and the dots. And then the issue with the height, it seems, if it's at 40 feet, it seems like it's gonna be pretty tall.
Okay, so what they proposed, excuse me,
Yeah, no, go ahead.
proposed 35 feet, and the bylaw in town goes by the mean average of the roof. That's where the height is actually of the mean grade. So it's not the peak of the house, it's the mean of the highest roof. So, I don't know, it may look like 40, it probably is,
Right.
but if they're under 35 or under, then they, lines.
If it's allowed, then it's allowed. I'm not challenging that, and that's just, making sure. And there seems like an attic or something there too. My main issue is the proximity of the two buildings when they're complete. And that, as we go up a little bit here, that, we can't, not reaching out the window and shaking hands or that sort of thing. And, so.
So they will have to comply with the setbacks.
Okay. That's my, and as I yield to your expertise in interpreting the applicable zoning laws, so I'm not, just, I'm in a butter, and just, my financial interest in the property, what I think is probably valued as high as possible, so I just want to make sure whatever's built is appropriate.
Anybody else? Okay, so agreement that you'll come back on, I've already heard the date 3 times. That will be in Byfield?
Yeah.
Officers there.
It's called Ken.
All right, you need to sign the continuance. One signature.
That's fine. Thank you.
Yep.
Richard White Jr. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow continued use of a detached accessory structure pursuant to the Newbury bylaw, section 97-4D, as a garage and a one-bedroom unit apartment on lot property located at 10 Annapolis Way West, Plum Island, Assessors Map U02-0-98.
Julianne, here on behalf of the applicant, Richard White, GMC and Stan White. So, just to let you know, the Whites had purchased the property in November of this year. Mr. Dobbins, who is the person who actually constructed the existing home and the existing garage and the accessory apartment. In preparation for this particular filing and in an attempt to figure out if you will, legitimacy or permits, I guess, issued in connection with the accessory apartment. We tried to find any information in the files, which was impossible because they're gone. So the only thing we were really able to find were a couple of, one permit, one occupancy permit, all the plans were gone, everything was gone. So basically,
The house,
both.
did they exist or were they?
Oh, they exist. There was a front floor plan submitted and everything was there, it's just that I was told that when there was an incident in the town hall, and that's what we had. And when I went to see the building inspector, as well, I said, look, I can find I've been trying to find information regarding the plans and, this. I haven't been able to find much. So basically what we did was we filed this particular petition, arguing 2 points. One is always you would argue to reverse the building inspector's decision, basically saying that the position taken was not supported. And then in the alternative, we asked for experience. The criteria for the experience is set forth in the memo. Our position is pretty clear that we're trying to get this particular use made legitimate. It would be our position that it was legitimate and has existed for 15 years. That when the building actually went up, immediately upon it having been completed, the assessor's records show that it's a two-family. Typically when that happens, that's because the building permit and an occupancy permit is given to the assessor, and then they go in and review. But I can't tell you if they did that or not. I have no idea, because I can't find any records. But I can assure you that in 2000, because the fiscal year is the way it runs, the way the assessor records work, as soon as that garage was completed, it was deemed to be a multifamily, and I included the records for the assessors in the file. So basically, the particular property is a compilation of 5 different lots. As everybody knows, you hear testimony everywhere, and you know well better than anyone that Plum Island is a very densely populated area with very small lots as a result of having prior zoning allowed for very small lots. So this particular property was a compilation of 5 individual lots and actually consists of about 25,000 square feet, which for the area is remarkably oversized because most of those lots, as you know, are probably 25, maybe some of them go to 10,000, pretty large for this area, and most likely not that large. And I did include in your file not only aerial photos, but also the assessor's map, just showing the size of the lot's location for homes, etc. So this particular property had a home constructed on the permanent pole sometime in 1999, prior to actually the prohibition in Plum Island prohibiting the construction of accessory apartments. We're not sure what that garage had at that point. There had always been a garage since the initial inception. It's just in 2004. It appears that it was either renovated, torn down. I can't tell about that either. It looks like it was completely renovated.
And it was, you say the garage was built in 2000?
It appears that the garage has been there from the inception. I included an aerial photograph at the very end where you can see the garage. And I'm sure that it was there from early 2000s. But if you look at the assessor's map, it says that this particular accessory component, i.e. the newer garage, I think the garage was renovated in around 2004. And I have a permit talking about the garage in 2004. And then the assessor's records show, and by the way, the reason for 2004 is, you know, the way the fiscal years run, and the way the assessor actually taxes, you tax almost 2 years after completion, which is why it's so odd, because the assessor's records were on fiscal, building permits were on calendar. There you go. So you'll see that the assessor's records do begin taxation of the multifamily. You know, our position is this particular lot is the perfect candidate, if you will, for these variants for a few reasons. Number one, the property really is rather unique. It is very large for its size. It is completely buffered from all adjacent properties. The accessory use is even buffered. There's a lot of open space land for this particular lot. So it does make it unique. The particular hardship would truly be that we're going to actually require somebody to eliminate an economically productive piece of property, take it off the tax roll, which is probably somewhere in the vicinity of $150,000 worth of taxable value to the town, which would go away because you can see that it presently is taxed as a two-family and no longer if we aren't given these variants. In addition to that, it's just simply the loss of an affordable component of living. I mean, it is a one-bedroom unit. It is something that the town is supposedly strives for, and that is one of the purposes set forth in your bylaw. So again, not only is the property unique, but the requirement or the failure to issue would result in substantial hardship that would be economic, financial, and even an impact to the town. By allowing this particular use, you simply are actually supporting that which is part of your purposes, which is to have an economic alternative, affordable and affordable housing, number one. I realize that your particular bylaw says that you aren't supposed to increase density or provide for that type of location, but this particular property's been in use for 14 years. I would say that there really is no impact, number one. Number two, no matter what, this particular place is still part of the property, it still would be used, it still has, it would be used, I suppose, for an office. It still has a bathroom, it still has a full kitchen, it has all of those things. It's just that currently we stopped using it for any kind of dwelling unit because it isn't used anymore. So by granting this, you aren't derogating from the purposes or intent of the bylaw. You in fact are actually supporting it. It isn't anything, there isn't over density because this particular property is less density than anything around it. And by granting this bylaw, you would simply be preserving a tax base that currently is part of your tax base in the community.
Did you look at our bylaws and find any place where we allow use variances?
We were told by your building inspector you allow use variances, do you not?
No, the bylaw does not allow use variances.
That is funny, because we were told by the building inspector to file for use variance, if you read his letter too.
So, you know Attorney Mann, 48, Section 10,
Oh, I
requires the
know.
bylaw to say that a use variance is allowed to be granted by the zoning board, and the bylaw doesn't do that.
You know what, again, when the building, I assume the building inspector knows better, and when the building inspector reads that letter, I assume he did. So be quite honest, so as I said, I played in the alternative and asked.
It's a process too.
So I did plead the alternative to reverse the decision of the building inspector based on tenant's equity, because there is absolutely no way to prove this case or our case. It's impossible. The building records do not exist. They are gone. So, we're here to ask for that relief, and that would be a reversal of his decision. And no, we definitely did, we didn't have the experience. I would definitely let them, no, I apologize. Probably let the building inspector go quite fast, because you do have a copy of the decision. Here's the letter, right? Okay. So, yeah, we would still ask for a reversal of the administrative decision, and based on the exact same set of facts that I just said.
I don't think we can grant a variance.
Oh, you most certainly cannot.
So I think what she's asking is, so she pled in the alternative, so she asked to overturn Sam's decision, which is the other option.
I'm not sure.
So Sam said, no building permit, you can't occupy this residence, it's an illegal apartment. And so you have two ways to go around that. You can either reverse his decision, and that takes all three votes of the board as well, or you can get a variance. And so obviously you can't grant a variance, so you can decide whether or not you want to reverse Sam's decision. I think that you might want to hear from Sam if you're going to go that road. Because he wasn't here, I suspect he thought he would listen to another variance.
Just curious, because you didn't provide us any information really on this apartment or garage, the size of it, the scope, and really what the primary residence is.
So let's say the lot size was conforming,
Right.
and the garage was just a garage, and this was presented before us for finding for an accessory apartment. How is that a change of use? Is this, what's the variance of use change if someone is seeking, or clarifying in this case, if this was the case of someone seeking an accessory apartment?
Yeah, I don't think accessory apartments aren't allowed on the island, I think, that's the difference.
Is that,
Yeah.
okay, but here-
Accessory apartments aren't allowed, yeah.
okay.
I think it had
It was when the PIOD went into effect, so 2002, 2001.
So that, under that section is
Right.
where, in terms
Right.
of use of single-family, multifamily,
Single family or two family, that's it, on the island, unless it's pre-existing non-conforming. Accessory apartments aren't allowed.
but I just want
Yep.
Right, and again, I just, excuse me, looking through, you provided us with a application for a building permit for a garage. It says nothing about an apartment on the permit.
And I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay.
I tried to find everything I could from the file. So, I'll explain. So the reason why I didn't provide you information relative to the apartment unit or the home is because I received a request from the building inspector to apply for an experience. So I presumed that he actually had a whole bunch of details, and I can provide you that information. That's not an issue. It's simple for me to get. I don't actually have plans, but I could probably try and find something. I have what I hope what I have. So the reason I provided you this information is because I felt that it was incumbent upon me to give you everything I had. Whether it said supported me, didn't, it's incumbent upon me to give you the file. It does only say garage. It is odd that this particular apartment was built in its completely in its existing condition. It was immediately assessed for two-family. I would love to have seen what the plan said, because I don't know what the plan said. I don't know if the plan said it was a two-family. I don't know. I know nothing about the particular time, and it was so long ago, and everything's gone. And even when I went back to talk to Sam about it, he said, look, I don't know. He said, I find it hard to believe that I would have done something without being directed to do it. I don't know. And I said, okay, because, and I recognize that this is simply hearsay. Mr. Dobbitts, who was the original person who owned, I don't know if anybody knows him, I know he was kind of active in the town. Mr. Dobbitts insisted that it was permitted. He insisted that everybody knew it. He insisted that when he filed, he did. And again, I realize it's hearsay. I realize this, trust me. It's simply that, we clearly wanted to do our due diligence and attempted to discover whether or not anything he was saying could be verified. And we weren't able to do that with anything. So that's why we're before you saying, look, it's there, it exists. We're not using it because the town told us not to. And now we're here to try and say, look, do you really want us to take it down? Do you really want us to change the value? Do you really want us to file for an abatement? Is it possible that this is something that should be reversed? I mean, again, I did talk to Sam. He really didn't have any additional information either for me, but he really did think I was going to use variance. I did tell him that I was going to do a reversal, but he truly thought I could have an experience, so he probably would have been more attentive if he thought that it was going to go straight just to his reversal. Because he knew that that was really kind of fault, a real position for the experience.
Good.
How does the garage get, when do the dimensional regulations, the table of dimensional requirements come into play? I mean, it's been amended several times. But I mean, that garage isn't even 10 feet from the property line, so how did that go?
Again, that's the thing,
Right.
there's so much, there's
Was
nothing.
Sam the building
Yeah, Sam
inspector
was the
at that
building
time?
inspector, so that's why I think it's important to have him. I don't know when he started, but I'm pretty sure he was the building inspector during his
He was
time.
definitely during 2004, the reason I
It may
asked.
have been right on the cusp of just coming this
Is that
year, and
one?
he may not have issued it.
So I don't think we're
If
actually,
it was even issued.
I don't think we're going to get anywhere tonight. I think we need to talk to Sam, get his input, and if you would to come back in 3 weeks.
Sure, would you like me to give you more information about the home? Do you want that information?
Anything you can provide
Primary
us.
accessory dwelling, I think.
Why do you, may I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? You're claiming this as an affordable unit, and why would you, I mean,
Oh,
what
I
is
just mean more affordable. You know what, instead of paying, if you go out and you rent a home in Long Island, I mean, those are.
So you don't have a restriction or anything like that either, right?
No, I just meant more affordable, I shouldn't have used the word affordable,
Okay.
it's moderately priced, and I do realize that from a lawyer, we always say, no, because it's a one bedroom, so it's not gonna rent for thousands, it's gonna rent for some,
Just over 1,000.
I have no idea what it is here, but I don't think it's that. It's not that, really. It's not that.
Right. Okay, so why don't we continue?
I apologize, but I didn't know when the next meeting was.
It's Thursday, February 21st at 7:30, and it will be held in our municipal office building.
Oh, okay.
Which is at
Oh,
Spark
yeah,
County.
I'm sorry. Would you like to comment on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you want to go first?
I have some notes, but if you want to,
Two things. John Mold, I live on the corner store. And we're butters. And I do Paul Gordon very well, very long time. And I know, I couldn't tell you exactly right now when the house was built. But I know the garage was probably built in the early 2002, 2004.
According to the permit, it was 2004.
I guess my memory is better than that. It's, with the exception of last year, there was never rent. Last year, Paul did have some people who rented it for a night or two. And the biggest complaint that I have is, I don't know what you can possibly do with parking. Because the Corners Court, which is the Little Street, which used to be an Apple's Way, and the town changed it. It's a little one-way street with 5 houses. Only 3 have off-road parking. The times that it was being rented, people were trying to park on the Corners Court. Couldn't get a police car in there, you couldn't get a fire truck in there. It kind of circles the park, it kind of circles around, so it's on that road.
So there's no parking for the main house?
Yeah, there is some, but they're gonna rent the main house.
But there's parking for the main house and also the garage.
There's parking for both.
There's parking.
That's an option, I think. Because there is only so much room there. The main house is big. And
It's 3 bedrooms.
they're renting it, that's the plan, from what I understand, it's gonna be rented. But I don't know where they're gonna put the cars, and I'm very concerned about that, for the main issue. The other thing is, in all honesty, yes, they're gonna rent the big house, which they are, and then they wanna rent the garage. How many people we gonna have, and what is it gonna be like? And they live in Middleton, from what I understand. What do we do if there's a problem? I mean, you can call the police all the time, but try and get along with the neighbors. If they had so many more people, what do we do? You know, I think that's a concern.
So, I'm Brian Wolf, 1 O'Connor Court, across the street from John. So we are butters. I got the abutter notice as well. It is a neighborhood. As John said, we have 5 houses. They're all owner occupied. I've been there 2.5 years. John's been there. Other than the last house on the street, who are individuals live in New York, they don't rent, so they come up during the summer. But they're good neighbors with them. Certainly traffic. We get a lot of cross traffic there, a lot of GPSs trying to direct people up O'Connor's Court. For the folks that may have been here a long time, my understanding anyway, I'm not talking for personal knowledge, is that it used to be a spider web of streets that all connected. It used to be Annapolis Way, Annapolis Way West, Annapolis Way East, and left. And they had to divide it up because it became a problem for 911 historically. So we became O'Connor's Court. The roads are all separated now, except that we get the traffic pulling off Plum Island Turnpike across from the beach home, turn in where we are, because it's a dead straight look right at this property, which is on Annapolis Way. So concerned about that. Concerned about the flow of traffic. That area in the middle there where they closed it off, where it used to be street, people do pull up there and park. And that would be ideal parking for the home and the garage. The property also, all I did was pull from the hydrant project. But what I'm talking about is O'Connor's Court comes up here. This area right here, which used to be a road, that is where people can pull up down the park. Up here at the end where it is their property, this green is that whole property. The garage is approximately right there. We're worried about people coming up and parking here. This whole back section here is wetland, so I know that it was stated there's this huge lot, 25, but a lot of it's wetlands that they've never been able to develop. So I think Paul had enough to do to get his one big house there. I'm not sure how the other one did, because it's long before my time, but you can hold on to that complicated part. So I guess one thing I wanted to ask you, and this is my ignorance of our laws, is, and I think I heard a lot of it here, but I just want to kind of have it restated. Plum Island does not allow two families except in a single structure.
That's correct.
So there's one family, two family, that's it. No separate structures are allowed. So and that's just the way it is. So then this ended up being built. So the variance is to say, we're just going to ignore that this was built so that we can make this property dual use, have potentially two separate structures.
That's the request.
That's the request. Okay, just.
So they were denied by the building inspector, and they're coming here for relief.
But he denied it for a different reason. Sounds like he denied it because he's unaware that that thing ever had a CO.
No, he denied it because he said it's an alienable unit. And so what happens, there's two ways to get relief from that. It's either to ask for a use variance or overturn his decision having been wrong.
Okay, and that's the argument.
That's why they're here.
Does it have a CO? How did it get a CO if it's an illegal apartment?
CO to the garage or to the CO? There's actually, there's a certificate of occupancy.
So,
I thought that was it.
so there's a CO that it was an apartment with a kitchen, bathroom, all the things that it needed to be a standalone unit.
No, there was a.
Okay. So,
Maybe it's
yes.
just a sign up for the building permit.
Some of this, I'm just trying to educate myself
Right.
what the rules are.
So just so you know, everything they file is public record, you can get it at town hall.
But I have to go there. I got online and I couldn't find anything.
It's not online.
So you don't post it there?
No.
Okay.
You know what all I had was a sign off on the building permit, the CO that is missing the file too. I just have a full sign up on the first building permit. This is in the file.
Building permit, one that you have in our file as well?
Yes. One of them, there are a few of them. That's why.
Well, but maybe he came in for the,
Exactly.
for the closure or for the certificate of occupancy.
It's hard to tell because it was, the building permit was like signed up. It's not, I can't tell.
So,
Right after.
So we had a permit to build a garage for sure, and so decided to add the apartment and it never got a CO, that just all existed magically. Okay.
Well, that's what they're trying to put the facts back together.
Yeah. So if there were no records, this couldn't be found?
if this unit, if they can prove that it was permitted, but it was never used,
We've been told it was used.
well, you'd have to
We-
provide
again,
documentation.
I get an affidavit. I mean, all I can do is an affidavit
Right.
because it's clear that, you know, it's odd, right? Because the garage, they have power in the garage, they have heat to the garage, they have water in the garage, they have everything to the garage, this is a bathroom. So I can prove separate meters going everywhere and separate, you know, separate lines because it's a separate building. I can prove that, but I can't, you know, I can get
I don't even
a
know.
certificate from Dobbins, Mr. Dobbins telling you that he is, you know, this has been used and claims that it's been legal use since its inception. I can get that.
But we need, you know, we need something like that, but we also need something to show us that it was legally built.
And it's impossible to do because your files are gone. And
So that's why you need to have seen.
Yeah, it's,
So
yes.
there is an architect and builder listed on here.
Yep.
Are they still around, existing, still practicing?
we tried to get in touch with the builder to try and get some information, I haven't been able to do that.
Was property sold to you as,
And it was represented in the, by the, on MLS by the Realtor as a legal community, yes, but I'm not telling you that, you know.
well, that's all
I
I'm
thought,
asking.
yeah, it was representing, absolutely, that's how it was listed in the MLS, and it was even in the purchase and sale agreement that it was a legal community, yes.
And if it had a longer time use, we didn't notice until this last year. I think when Paul put the house on the market, he started renting either Airbnb or maybe he was trying to create a rental record for it for the sale. Whatever he was trying to do, all I know is the foot traffic and the car traffic on our street became exceptional. From a time that was very quiet for a year and a half that I lived there, and then this last year. That's not a lot of comparison, but then during the summer, the foot traffic, hitting the beachcomb and everything else, and coming back late at night, it was distinctly noticeable.
I have to tell you though, it's odd, because it has to have been derived from the home, not from the apartment, because the apartment is like, it's like an efficiency.
He was still in it, he was still in the home.
But I meant.
I'd like to speak to
Let's-
the butter, directly to butter.
Just
on that.
1 second, please. I'm not discounting what you're saying, but they have a lot of hurdles to go through before we even talk about where people are parking. Okay, so we're gonna consider what your input, but they have much bigger hurdles to get through. Okay? Yes.
I am Christina Howe, I live at 9 Annapolis Way, directly across the street from them. I probably have similar concerns, I've been there for 13 years, so again, I could vouch, like John, there was so much stuff at Paul's house that nobody was living in anything, and the cars wouldn't even fit in the garage, so, you know, it's been a gentrified neighborhood of full-time residents, so I definitely have a concern with transients, because it's a dead-end street. I've seen the increase of traffic over the last year because he was doing Airbnb, I think, again, to supplement income. There's no place to turn around, so people tend to like back up into our driveway constantly. And then in the winter, it's even worse because it's a narrow street, you know, the streets are like, so again, my concern is the frequency of the rental. Again, if it was like a seasonal thing, I wouldn't be so concerned, but if it's like a turnover constantly, it is gonna increase and change the neighborhood a lot.
And 2 units, if they're rented separately as 2 units, would make it even worse.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's, if everybody's in agreement, we'll continue. We'll talk to Sam, we'll talk to Sam on the shore, and we'll continue.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Okay, we need your signature.
I didn't even see you sitting over there.
No, I'm sorry, I meant to come up because somehow or other when I phoned on my changed employers, I lost my contact list. So, anyway, just, I was gonna ask Mark if he was coming, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, he's down in Boston, so I was texting him like, "These are the last ones of the evening." I should have had dinner before.
Didn't quite hear the names and addresses for the record, so did you say O'Connor's boy?
O'Connor's,
Okay.
1 O'Connor's Court.
Okay.
Home of the butter, it's Brian, last name is Lewis, just like Brian Lewis.
And you are on O'Connor's board as well. What number? 2?
Not me, though.
And your name was John. Did I get Tyler now or not? I wrote down Tyler. No.
Yeah.
And I have you as Christine Howe.
Yep.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, 'cause the dogs always play over there.
We had another butters
We will
notice.
not get another butters notice. they've met their legal requirement to advertise the hearing. So you've heard that the continuance is to the 21st of February, so that's when we will hear from them. Unless they request a continuance, feel free to check in with me that day and see if I've heard from them, to see if they've requested a continuance beforehand. What's that? Yeah. So
And I'm sorry.
I'm Susan.
So-
Susan, wait, yeah, I'm the administrator for the board that's on staff there, for another position, so feel free to reach out, call, and other than that, we will plan on meeting at the 12th Way. There's two offices on the 21st of February. Okay, you're welcome.
The biggest concern is like, they've never even vacationed on the island. They just bought it as investment. When I spoke to him, he was like, never been on it.
Recall.
Okay.
Which was interesting.
That's interesting.
The other thing that's happening now, because of all of those construction guys, and all of the fuel guys, and all of the.
Because everything keeps breaking.
All
No, I'm good, go ahead.
No.
To speak.
and of course, they get to the street, and then it can't run.
Yeah.
Well, we've had like some of the people who've been doing the B&B, they'll come flying down the street and I'm out there with the dog or whatever. Or the same thing, they'll come up and they, you know, back up into the driveway, all that kind of stuff.
I think I'd rather have that whole situation than well, we get
Well, that's
turn
true.
around and drive by.
But we also get the beach code.
But I think there was also a decision.
I know.
by the Board of Health.
And singing and loud in the middle of the night. We're just a little too exposed.
I hear you. Because,
Rather keep.
because when they got the permit for the beach cover, we complained about that because they were like up until 1 AM.
Well, they told me that
And
they.
sometimes they pass it down 1,000 times, but it hasn't been bad. It's the people that stay in. It's
The parking lot.
They stay out front of the parking lot, or sit there and they sit down. And then they all walk on the street, you know, so they're on the ground.
Yeah, we can hear them singing there, because our bedroom's like right against that.
And you have the elevation, so you're hearing it too.
I hear them, I see them, you know, it just.
All right.
Mary, time for a pizza.
Well, what I was informed last I spoke to them, did you meet with them at they had a hearing with you, and then I think after that, hearing, there was a session with, town council. And I think that, after that session, at least from my understanding, the Board of Health told me that they would not be issuing a deed restriction, that you were gonna make the necessary modifications to the accessory structure that met the bylaw requirements, and you could move forward in that. So that way your septic would be accommodated to the number of rooms that it was approved for. They wouldn't be doing a deed restriction for 5 bedrooms versus the 4 bedrooms that your septic is approved for. Got it?
Yes.
Okay.
The only caveat that, with my understanding that it wasn't a Board of Health's decision
Well,
to not use the deed restriction as they indicated that meeting was their right in Massachusetts law, and they were going to talk to the town council, and after that meeting, it was decided that wasn't going to fly.
I think in essence, yes, ultimately it's their decision, but, I mean, Board of Health owns their Board of Health regulations. But I think after considering all of the information as it related to the hearing, that yes, and indeed it is a 4-bedroom, it's for a 4-bedroom, it's not for a 5-bedroom. We don't want to start setting precedents. This is for an accessory structure. You know, the bylaw clearly states what the accessory structure requirements are. I don't think it's in our best interest, Board of Health, to do a deed restriction on this. That is my understanding, so.
That's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I'm-
kind of a move. I know that's where it's going.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, that's what they told me. I'm just reiterating what they told me. I don't think it really matters where it came from. That's just what they told me their decision was, and that they wouldn't be doing a deed restriction. That's all.
Yeah, we talked about it, and my issue was that the deed restrictions are not within the purview of the zoning board of appeals. You either meet the special permit criteria of the zoning board of appeals or you don't. And so that's what's before the zoning board of appeals. You either meet the zoning board of appeals special permit criteria or you don't. The special permit, or excuse me, the Title V issues are Board of Health. Whether they issue a deed restriction or not, that's their issue. But it has nothing to do with what the zoning board of appeals does.
So the other thing that's been an ongoing discussion since we first came is the electrical service. And where are we with that?
Once again, I've done nothing since our last meeting, other than, I did speak with the inspector, I don't know if I already brought this prior to the last meeting, not. But basically, there's no leak there, and he can't, obviously.
So you need to change the electrical service to conform to the accessory or detached accessory regulations.
So, the only question I have is, you know, because as a resident, you know, you go in front of the ZBA, and you're not a ZBA person, you're just going in front of the ZBA because they grant relief. So, my question to the board is, there is no mechanism for the board to finding variance or whatever that can grant relief from a bylaw.
The relief is that you're looking for, right, so accessory apartments are only allowed by a special permit. That's your relief. So the rule is accessory apartments aren't allowed unless you get a special permit. That's your relief. And if you're gonna get a special permit, you have to meet the requirements of the bylaw. That's the relief.
The only caveat I heard the other day say too is, I love Sam, I told you before, I was hand in hand with him the day I come to this permit. Shame on me for not coming to the ZBA first, thinking I know that he's only enforcement officer. I got some bad information.
I know you've said that,
So,
and we can't, you know, give you relief because you had what you think is bad information.
I understand. So, can I ask why you requested the floor plan? The relevance?
Because I think they just wanted to see what the layout in the accessory structure was. Because you had listed as an office and a bedroom, so I think they wanted the dimensions of the office to see if it truly qualified as a bedroom definition. Maybe it didn't, and if it didn't, then that gave you some relief as far as the zoning board of appeals goes.
So the requirements, so the general requirements include what the accessory apartment is made up of. And the only way for them to know that is to see a floor plan.
I know, I had already supplied with the original, and they asked for just some more information on this query on the board, if that was in some way going to help my case or not.
Well, it provided more specifics,
Yeah.
right, and because the other one was just kind of dimensional on the outside, there was no, nothing specific as it relates to the floor plan, and that's really.
And if you want to have an office, you have to show that it's not a bedroom with the floor plan. In other words, you can't have a 3-foot door or a 32-inch door closed. It has to be open, no door.
So
Well, I'm just giving you an example
Yeah.
of what we need to see. So you don't,
but that will kind of be moved if I go to, I got full bill permit, I got all of the room, so the Board of Health is comfortable that it's not a bedroom.
Right.
They will issue.
we need to be
you
comfortable.
a-
We need to be comfortable it's not a bedroom also.
And it's just part of the documentation of, once you have a finding, then it gets attached to the deed, and so the paperwork and the plans go with it. You know, the next person pulls it up, all you have to paper that says it's a 1-bedroom, and they walk the other end, they go, oh, that's like, so it's documentation in a way that's not just words, it's more form.
And we do that with every accessory structure. You know, we ask for a floor plan and of the primary structure as well as the accessory structure. So we just didn't have it and they wanted it directly.
So, if you want to continue with us, we will pass information for the next year, because we're not making any progress, you're not making any progress with this year.
It's just the time of year I'm not, to do the electric thing, literally, it's not just changing up the wire, it's literally.
Well,
trench.
you have the option to withdraw without prejudice, and you can come back to us.
Well, what is the timeline? Can I keep it open for months, or is it a timeline?
I'd have to ask Lisa.
I can't do it in the spring, obviously.
Well, don't you want to know whether or not you get the permission to do it, right? So you're not going to do the construction until you get the permission to do it, right? I know, right,
Explain that, what I mean, I can, I
right.
say, all right, I'm gonna change my electric.
Yeah, you have to give us
Yeah,
documentation
you gotta
of what you're
get, yeah,
gonna do.
you tell us what you're gonna do, and they'll give you the permit, and then you can do it. You can't do it and then get the permit. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
You've
thinking
already-
I'm gonna go to building inspector, electrical inspector, get my permit.
No,
You've already
you
tried
gotta-
that method, and that's why you're here.
You gotta
It
get,
didn't work.
you've gotta show a plan that shows exactly what you're gonna do and how you're gonna do it. They're gonna approve that plan, presumably, and then you've got a permit, and then you've got, I don't know, I can't remember whether a special permit's good for a year or 2 years to get it done. You can't pull any
Yeah,
building
Sam can't
permits.
give you a permit.
That even makes me low on how I got here. Man, I can't believe Sam is pushing me to lead this process. All right, that makes even more sense.
So, you know, you have a copy of the bylaw for detached.
Yeah.
Follow that with the, come back. But don't come back if you're not ready to do something. 'Cause
With a plan.
With a plan.
Yeah, you gotta give them
A
a
plan
plan that
that you
shows
know
what
that-
you're gonna do.
that we will approve. And if you go down the checklist, you conform, your plan conforms to all of that, and you give us.
But down to two things, I mean, the checklist was there,
Yeah, okay,
every
well,
one of them was hit.
yeah, but we've been in the same place now for months. Part of it is, you know, we continued, you've continued a few times.
I didn't continue nothing without being requested.
Right, because the information wasn't here, right?
You
So,
haven't provided us with the information yet. And that's what the point is, I'm trying to get at.
And what I feel, I'm a Newbury resident.
Right?
I just got my tax bill bumped up to 10 grand.
Okay, good.
so everybody has to provide the same thing. You heard this whole, you've been here for the last couple of hearings, right? So nobody's treated any differently.
I'm just getting a feeling like I'm taking up your time that I shouldn't be here or
No,
something.
no, we just want you to bring us.
I'll bring you what you need.
Okay, thank you.
Are you continuing to 221, or do you need more time than that?
I would like to continue to 221, and if I run into some obstacles that makes it impossible to be ready on this.
So Steve, if you pull the package back together, you had a site plan of your property, right? That's the site plan. Then you have a plan that shows new electrical routing. Then you have your building plans that you've included with this, right? And then the checklist is what Howie's saying, it's just helpful that if you print this out, you can check off that every single one of these board that attachments met. Then it's a quick review of reading these and checking stuff out.
mean, you might notice I had a spreadsheet of every one of them with the application.
I know, we're just trying to pull it all back together, because again, when someone makes a motion and we approve a motion, then we take those papers and basically staple and sign them that this is what was agreed to. So I think because time has gone
So
on,
just
we've kind
another
of got.
full package, I think is what they're
That's what I'm
asking
trying to
for.
say. That would expedite things, the full package.
You know, obviously, the biggest things I have to go back to the beginning, to redo the site plan to include.
The other line. Yep.
I think the full package upgrade, professional.
And you need to give us a floor plan of the system.
And we have that was in your pack, yeah, assuming that hasn't changed, this is what he gave us, so that. it's in your
But that's
package.
gonna have to change now.
Exactly, you'll have to modify it based on, new conditions. Yep.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Sign the,
Thank you.
One second. One second. Is there any general requirements?
we need to know letters, title.
So he just needs to request a letter from the Board of Health, I guess.
We want to know what your septic system is approved for.
Yeah, it's part of the, yeah.
It's part of the documentation listed.
I think they turned the heat off. What? I think they turned the heat off.
Yeah, I think we turned it down at least.
Is that something that I should already have as when I got my system done, or is that something the Board of Health is now going to actually?
I think it probably needs to be, just my guess, because you haven't did they sign off on your building permit initially?
Yeah.
So it shows how many bedrooms you're approved for.
So I'll just shoot them an email and just say, can you just, document for me what my Title V system is approved for 40 Old Rowley Road? Well, pull it up, we want it as part of the package anyway, so.
Why don't we go to the next one? Okay,
All right.
is there any other business to discuss?
Judge, if you read the draft minutes that I
Yes.
put together, probably just want to make a motion to vote on whether or not you accept them.
I read it in my head, some of that,
And I made those notations that we sent. Yeah.
So we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Congratulations.
You guys got a lot going on.
We have a second here.
Second.
All in favor?
All right, so something to my